Good day, good evening, and good morning to some of you, depending on where you're calling in from around the regions. Um, we're glad to have you. We will start our session in about 4 minutes. So we'll start our session at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Again, welcome. We're glad to have you. We'll start at 2 minutes after the top of the hour. Again, welcome everyone. We're glad to have you join us. We'll start up in another couple minutes. We'll start at 2 minutes after the hour. We will allow others to join us. So again, welcome. We're glad to have you. Give us another couple minutes and we'll get started. Okay, give others a little bit more time to join us. Got another 40 seconds here. Christopher, the answer to your question is you can always go out to the certification, get certified, and look at the recordings. All of the recordings for our classes are out there. So it may not be specifically this one, but they're all the same. Okay, so you should be able to go out there and find that. Yep, you're welcome. Again, welcome everyone. Welcome. Just it looks like the 2 minutes is up, so we'll give those other people an opportunity to join us. Thank you for putting in the chat where you're calling in from. Again, welcome. Glad to have you again. My name is Odell Gordon. I am a technical trainer here at Sumo Logic. I'm based out of the Midwest here. And we had a nice day today. It was about 78 degrees, sunny. Got some rain coming tomorrow. So hopefully you're somewhere comfortable. A little bit about my background for those of you that haven't taken the courses with me all week. Again, I've been in IT for about 30 plus years. I've played several roles. I enjoy teaching, training. So that's where I've been spending the last 15, 20 years in technical training. I started out as a database administrator. So again, my career is surrounded around data. Okay. Thank you, West. Welcome back from Texas. Okay, glad to have you. Appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Sumo Administration Certification. In our course here, our agenda is to download a file that we're going to use as a source, okay? So we're going to simulate going through adding a collector by downloading the file for our source, okay? We're going to do that. Then we'll get into describing collectors and metadata a little bit more in depth. Then you and I will log into our training environment. And we're going to go ahead and complete labs 1, 2, and 3, where we set up a collector and 2 sources. That downloaded file, that's one of the sources that we're going to be using as a source. Pardon me, that's one of the files we're going to be using as a source. Pardon me. Then we'll, once we complete those 3 demos, we'll go ahead and look at the optimization tools. We'll give you an overview of administration. Then you and I will go back and complete labs 4 and 6, where we install apps and create alerts, okay? Now you'll notice it reads 4 and 6. We're skipping 5, and once we get to that actual lab, you'll see why, but just at a high level. For those that usually take the classes, for those that do take the class self-serves, we give them an opportunity to go back and take the fundamentals. But you'll see that as we get there. But again, that's why you see 4 and 6 there, okay? And then of course you have an opportunity to take the actual exam and get certified. And once, of course, you pass the exam and the certification, will actually email you an actual Uber Eats voucher, a $15 Uber Eats voucher, okay? I'll put that link in the chat once we get in the exam, okay? All right, so let me save some bandwidth, let you focus on the lecture and the slides, and I'll turn off my video. And let's go ahead and get started here. So from a high level, we're gonna look at the data flow. And this should be, for those of you that have been with me throughout the week, these should be some similar slides, okay? So again, I often lean on your imagination, and I often say, hey, let's imagine a freeway, a highway. And on one end of the highway is, of course, Sumo Logic. On the other end of the highway is your logs, your metrics, and all of that machine data that you're collecting. Now, we need a vehicle or a method to actually get your logs and metrics into our Sumo environment. And of course, we use that object called a collector, okay? That collector defines your sources, okay? And again, it encrypts, compresses, and sends, okay? That's where we're going to spend most of our time today, on the first step in our data flow, okay? Then, for those of you that have joined me in the search mastery, we searched and we analyzed and we used operators, and we also displayed our outputs in different chart types, okay? We also were able to do a visualization where we set up alerts and dashboards so we can monitor. So that's our logical data flow. Get it in, search and display it in dashboards and visualizations, as well as setting up alerts. All right, now, again, we're going to break down getting your actual logs and metrics into our environment. Okay, and we talk about it from the journey of 10,000 logs begins with a collector. And basically, essentially what we're saying here is the journey starts with getting all of that data into our environment using collectors. There's 2 types of collectors. There's the install and the hosted, okay? You're seeing on the screen caption over to the right, you're actually seeing our collection page, which actually is going to display all of our collectors. collectors and their sources. So right now, it's probably small there, but you're seeing a collector called AD demo. It's expanded, and underneath you're seeing all of 32 of its sources, okay? Then on the bottom portion, we're actually just seeing what you and I will do eventually. We're going to go ahead and click on the collections, and we'll create a collector, and then we'll add a source. You and I are going to do that a couple times. So again, that's getting our data into Sumo. Once our logs, metrics, and machine data, telemetrics, all that stuff is in, although that data is in Sumo, then that allows you and I to go ahead and build some log searches. Go ahead and build some metric searches, some live tails. Again, the logs and metrics and live tails will allow us to investigate, to find out if there's any anomalies or if there's any patterns or any issues. And then finally, step 3 is that visualization so you can monitor, okay? And one of the things we're gonna recommend throughout this course is that you, as an administrator, you install 2 apps that we recommend, okay? And we have a boatload of apps out there, okay, for all different sources. And we recommend that you actually utilize those apps for those sources to give you a starting point. Okay, but there's 2 apps that we're going to recommend and install in labs 5 and 6 a little later. Okay, that's the audit and the data app there. But again, we suggest going to the app catalog, the app store, in our tool, and looking for the source for you. You have predefined searches and predefined dashboards to help you troubleshoot and monitor. Now let's look at some data collection strategies. Now, this topic may be somewhat familiar to you. If you were in our Search Masteries or our Fundamentals courses this week, we actually went into the CIP and clicked on the Learn link under the Home tab. We clicked on that link, and the first thing that we saw was some quick start videos. One of those videos topics was data collection strategies. So here we're going to actually talk about a data collection strategy, but we have a video too on the Learn link just to kind of give you some support, okay? All right, now this slide again is a repeat slide. You know, sometimes it can appear overwhelming, but again, it's not. I'm going to lean on your imagination when I talk about that highway. On one end of the highway is Sumo Logic, okay, our cloud-based environment. On the other end of the highway is your logs, your metrics, all of that machine data you're collecting. We need to use a vehicle to get your logs or metrics into our environment. There's 2 types of vehicles. There's the hosted and there's the installed, okay? And let's just go over a high-level example of installed. I have 3 servers here. I'm installing the distributed. So basically I'm installing the install collector on each one of those servers. Each one of those collectors is going to encrypt, compress, and send up through the firewall into Sumo Logic. Okay, that's more of a distributed approach. Maybe you have a standalone, okay, where you want to have a centralized location where your collector is installed and all of the other machines are feeding to it. It is still going to encrypt, compress, and send it up to the firewall into Sumo Logic. So this is for an on-prem type environment, okay, where you're physically installing. And that's basically a Java, just a small Java app that you're installing. Then on the other hand, the other type of collector, of course, is the hosted collector. Okay, and that, of course, you would utilize if your logs and metrics are in AWS, Microsoft Azure, or the cloud, Google Cloud. If it's in those or any of those other, it's seamless. There's no installation. Again, you're giving us the URL or what have you, where those logs or metrics you're collecting from, and Sumo Logic will host it. So again, the big takeaway, the key takeaway here is there's two types of collectors. Depending on where you're capturing your data from, it's going to determine what you're going to do. If it's in the cloud, it'll be hosted. If it's on-prem, you're going to install a collector. Again, this further talks about the distinction between the two. An install collector, of course, you're going to have to install it. It's going to be deployed. Okay. It's also going to collect data that's available in your deployment. It's going to make it easy for you to actually troubleshoot as well, because there's a log that's capturing the steps in the process as you actually go through the installation. And you're going to see this coming up when we do that install collector. Then on the other hand, the hosted collector, of course, there's no installation. It's agentless. Okay, it's hosted by Sumo Logic. Again, it works very seamlessly with Google, Microsoft, and AWS. Okay. Again, it can also receive logs as well as upload via URLs. Okay. So the question then comes up, okay, Odell, I understand about the vehicle and how to get things in. Okay. How many collectors do I need? Okay. So you want to install a dedicated machine collector, a collector and a dedicated machine, pardon me. If you run a very high bandwidth, high logging levels, or if you're a central collection point for many sources. So remember that on-prem example I gave you, one of them was a central location and all the other servers were feeding to it. So that's that example up top, okay? You're gonna install more than one collector if you expect the ingestion from 500 or more separate files. If you have memory or CPU limitations, or if you're geographically separated, clusters are separated across networks, okay, or regions. Or if you expect to combine logging traffic for one collector to be greater than 15,000 events per second. Those are all scenarios when you would go ahead and install multiple collectors, okay? Now, on the left side here, again, here's that highway. In this example, the highway is in the center. Excuse me, Sumo Logic is in the center. And on one end, you have hosted collectors and the other you have installed. So let's talk about hosted. It's seamless, okay? Especially from Amazon. You can do your S3 buckets through a HTTP source. Hosted collectors don't require installation, which we talked about, or activation. They don't need any physical requirements, okay, since they're hosted by AWS. Again, install collectors, on the other hand, whoops, didn't mean to go there. Install collectors, on the other hand, again, that was the slides where we had on the left-hand side where we had multiple scenarios. So with install collectors, Sumo Logic are lightweight and efficient. You can choose to install a small number of collectors to minimize maintenance, or just because you want to keep your items centralized, okay? You can install many collectors on many machines to distribute the bandwidth, okay? And impact across your network. All right, so again, these two scenarios on the right, I have a centralized, it's going to encrypt, compress, and send. Then here's a distributed, so to speak, where I'm installing a collector on multiple servers. They're all going to encrypt, compress, and send. These next three slides further describe the differences between, again, the hosted and the install. So this first one talks about, oops, my finger keeps doing that. This first one talks about a cloud data collection. Okay, most data is generated in the cloud and by cloud services, and it's collected through the Sumo Logic's cloud integration. Okay, so some of the source types are your S3 buckets, your Google Suites, your cloud syslogs, your Azure hubs. Some of the benefits and drawbacks, again, it's hosted by Sumo Logic, that's beneficial. There's no installation, that's beneficial. It's agentless, that's a benefit as well, okay? Some of the scenarios, if you're using a cloud infrastructure, again, you typically want to use an actual hosted collector. The next slide, again, refers to a collector being installed on multiple servers, okay? The source types here are maybe you're collecting your some local files from the operating system. Maybe you're collecting your syslogs from some of the devices. Some of the benefits and drawbacks here, they require no hardware, no hardware. It does give you direct access to the logs during the installation, so you can go in and find out what's going on for troubleshooting. It does require outbound internet access though, and requires software installation and management, okay? Some of the scenarios for that distributed installation, if you have a large number of target hosts, okay? You can automate deployments as well. If you're comfortable with those target hosts being connected to the internet, great. Or if you have the majority of the target hosts in the cloud. So those are some of the scenarios. Then lastly, that's the centralized approach. Again, maybe we're collecting some of our database events, maybe some remote window events, or again, maybe some middleware, okay? Is installed on a set of dedicated machines. These collected data from the target host and various remote machines as well, okay? There's no outbound internet access. It does leverage some existing logging infrastructure. The scale might be an issue, or the dedicated hardware may be a problem, or any failover complexities, or for your rules that may be out there for your syslogs. Some of the scenarios are maybe you have, a dozen targets as opposed to 1,000. Okay. Maybe there's some limitations of connectivity for the internet. Those are some typical scenarios. This slide, ladies and gentlemen, is really to kind of remind you, we were actually promoted as a log collection company, but we actually collect metrics as well. Okay, so we want to reinforce that those Carbon 2.0, Graphite, and Prometheus metrics, we grab those. From your AWS, we'll grab those CloudWatch metrics. We'll grab the Stackdriver metrics from Google Cloud as well. So again, this slide is really to reinforce that we do collect metrics as well. All right, when it comes to metric ingestion here, okay, just be aware that each account is given each account is given free data points per minute, all right? And we have a retention plan for those data points per minute, okay? These free metric allotments for using our services, again, are stored as raw 1 minute and 1 hour resolutions. Okay, that's our retention plan. Okay, and it's retained according to our map over to the right. We're going to retain that raw data for 7 days, and we'll retain that 1 minute resolutions for about 30 days. And then we'll retain our 1 hour resolutions for 13 months. Okay, so that's our retention program for those as well. All right, let's take a look at some metadata design. This should be somewhat familiar to you. Once we want to grab some of that metadata or some of those logs and metrics, we use a metadata tag. And you're seeing 3 different types of metadata tags here. We're going to introduce you to another metadata tag as well later in this course. But again, we're going to use the one that's in bold. That's our preferred method. That's the one that's often used. It can be freely configurable. Basically, we could configure our underscore source category equal to labs Apache. And you'll notice in the screenshot just below the bolded one is actually our collections tab. And we've expanded one of the collectors and we see the actual sources. It has 8 sources, but the screen capture is only displaying 2 of them. How do I know it has 8 sources? Because I can look under the sources over here to the right and tell. Okay, but again, the key takeaway here is we're going to use the source category again continuously to actually grab those logs and metrics. You'll see we'll introduce you to another metadata tag as well. Now, speaking of metadata tags, our naming conventions are kind of important here. Again, we have a nomenclature of source categories that we recommend. Again, you want to begin with the least descriptive, highest level grouping, and then get more descriptive or granular to the right. So, for example, if you have your environment broken down by prod, UAT, or dev, you might have it broken as prod, my app, Apache Access, or dev, or UAT, Apache Access, and so forth. Or maybe you have it by application name or geographically. Maybe you have it by AWS East, Sec, Azure. So I'm grabbing my East Azure logs or metrics, okay? Or maybe you have it by business unit. So again, these are examples of those metadata tags. There's other techniques that can be utilized on those recommendations of those metadata tags. You could define the scope of your searches by, again, making sure those metadata tags are defined appropriately when you create them. You can index and partition your data by those metadata tags. So for example, if I wanted to create a partition for my, let's say my IT group or my finance or HR, one of those groups, I can create a partition because I actually use that source category and broke it down correctly. You can also use our RBAC, okay? Our role-based access control, where you can designate who has access to what source category, okay? There's some other best practices. Be aware, again, you can go out to our help, sumologic.com, and go ahead and Google source category, and you can see some more best practices out there. All right, so enough of me lecturing for a moment here. This is a depiction of what you and I are about to do, okay? So the first thing that you and I are gonna do, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna download a file onto our machines, wherever we are taking the course from. We're just gonna download that file. It's a text file, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna use that text file as a source eventually. So we'll download that. Then after we download, the first thing we're gonna do is create a collector, okay? We'll then define one source using that downloaded text file, and then we'll create another source using the actual metric. All right, so again, let's go in here, and I want you to think of a 3-digit number. I want to point out very quickly and very early that we were using different credentials today. We're using different credentials, okay? So I'll paste it in. Yep, you can go ahead and paste your 3-digit number from 1 to 999 in the chat for me. I am going to paste the actual credentials in the chat for you. Notice the email address is training plus admin. Thank you for putting your numbers in the chat. Please put your numbers in the chat for me. Thank you. So for those of you that haven't been with me all week, this is what you're going to do. You're going to open up a browser. You're going to type in service.sumologic.com. You'll then come to our splash screen here. You'll need to type in an email. You'll start out with the word training, the plus symbol, the word admin, your 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And again, the password is different from what we've seen this week. It is uppercase A for admin, 22 exclamation mark. Okay. Please confirm that you were able to log in successfully. Please confirm. You can either raise your hand or say it in the chat. Thank you, Stelly. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Hazel. Let me know if you have any problems getting in. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Joseph. All right. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Christopher. All right. Looks like a lot of us are getting in. Awesome. Glad to have you in and joining us. Okay. Just a real quick high-level recap. If you've come in our training environment and you saw a bunch of tabs open and you know you didn't open those tabs, so if you saw all of those tabs, remember you can just go to any one of those tabs and close all of those tabs. If you came in and you didn't see the actual navigation panel, you saw the stack of blueberry pancakes next to the phrase Sumo Logic. It turns to blueberry once you put your mouse over it. Otherwise, it's just regular plain old butter pancakes. But again, if you hover over it, it's blueberry. Anyhow, if you click on those stack of pancakes, you'll see our navigation panel. Okay. You click on the arrow, it'll hide it, show, and hide. All right. Now, you know that we have these 3 tabs next to our navigation panel. Thanks, Stelly. Thought somebody would get that. We have home, our library, and our alerts. We're going to be on the home tab. Under the home tab, you should see the home link and the learn link. So let's click on the learn link in our home tab. Remember, I just talked about one of those topics and it was talking about data strategies. Here's what I was referring to, ladies and gentlemen. So if you wanted to just get a little bit more on it, you could come in here and listen to this video. All right, so together we're on the home tab and the learn link. We're going to scroll down and we all should be on the hands-on administration labs. Now, I want to quickly digress for a moment. I want you to watch. Some of you have been with me all week and you might need the recording now, okay? And they haven't sent you the recording yet, okay? Here's what you do, just watch. Everybody doesn't need to do this. I'm digressing for a moment. You come in, you go to certification, you go to get certified, you click on recorded live training. You click on recorded live training, okay? Then if you wanted that fundamentals or you wanted the search mastery, you can always register, come out and register. And then there's the actual 2-hour lecture. It's not my pretty voice, but again, it's the same material. Okay, and then here's the actual diagram, the lab guide and the slides. That's for all our courses, okay? So just kind of digress for a moment. Wanted to show you that. Let's get back to our learn link. And again, we're on our administration. I'll put it in the chat in case someone can't get to it. Again, let's put this in there for everyone. And that's where we should all be. One of the techniques that you can use in Google Chrome, if you're using Google Chrome, you can pin the tabs, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and pin my labs tab, just right click on it and pin it. Now it allows me to quickly toggle between the CIP and the lab guide, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so in our lab guide, the introduction, ladies and gentlemen, basically you already logged in. I do want to point out one thing here for you. You know, we changed the password to this training environment. So that training ID that we're using, we changed the password the first of the month, the first Monday of the month, okay? If you need it, you can always email the training at sumologic.com to get that actual password, okay? Anyhow, I digressed. The introduction, we're fine with it. If you scroll down in the bottom right-hand corner, you should see a link that says Lab 1 Install Collector. Let's go ahead and click on that together. The first part of the lab kind of gives you the depiction again, what we're going to be doing. Okay. All right. We are going to start where it says before you begin, ladies and gentlemen. That's where you and I are going to start. Before you begin. We're going to download this here Apache Access Log tutorial text file. You can just right click on it and save as. Just right click on it. If you were to click on it, then it would open. Okay. So again, go ahead and right click on that and save as. We're going to use this file later as a source for the collector. Okay. All right. Now, let's go ahead and go down to the area where it reads install collector. What we want to do, ladies and gentlemen, is streamline the data into our Sumo Logic environment so we can view it and analyze it. Okay. A collector is a lightweight software package. Okay. That you install on a host machine in your environment to collect the data from those machines. All right. We're going to show you how to install a collector from the collection page, which gives you a lot more flexibility. All right, so let's go ahead and do this together. Let's go back to the CIP. Let's make sure our navigation panel is visible. Let's go down to our main menu. The main menu is a darker shaded area. And let's go ahead and click on the manage data. Under our manage data, we see some sublinks. Let's go ahead and click on the collections. Okay. Now, just to kind of describe where you are and what you're seeing, you're on a collections tab. The collections tab has 4 tabs within it. It has the collection tab and focus. Under the tab, you see an area where you can search for things. You see it's showing all the collectors, but you have the ability to filter down to show different types of collectors. It's showing 10 collectors. You could filter to show more if you wanted to. Right now, it's expanded all of the collectors so you can see the sources. I typically just click on none so it collapses and it's, it's just not so overwhelming looking at it, okay? And then over to the right, we see we have, again, the number of pages. Now, if you recall, if you were with me earlier this week, when we came and looked at the collector page, we didn't have all this flexibility. We didn't have these options. We couldn't do anything. We could only view and see what collectors were out there. We couldn't add, okay? But now we have that capability. So in the top right corner, let's go ahead and click on the phrase add collector. We get a pop-up menu. Again, we get the select the collector type. We're going to go ahead and choose an install collector, okay? Let's go ahead and choose an install collector. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm running on a Mac. So that's the type of collector I'm going to choose. You may be running on Windows, probably Windows 64-bit. You would use that one. Maybe you're running on Linux. You would use the actual install collector for that. So again, click on the one that's appropriate for you, where you are, what you have, and I'll go ahead and do that for my Mac. It again is going to install that for me. Okay. I can open up my Finder and see that that object has been downloaded. Okay. Once it downloads, ladies and gentlemen, you can go ahead and double click on it. It should be Sumo collector macOS _19_392. That's the one that we're going to .dmg. That's the one we're going to double click on. Okay. Hopefully you get to this point. I'm not going to try to slow down. I don't want to leave anyone. So once that Sumo Logic collector installs, you can go ahead and double click on it. It's going to go through a wizard. It's going to prompt you for access to install something on your machine. So if you don't have admins, right, it's going to prompt you for that admin ID of your machine. So if you don't have it, then that might be a point that you'll have to, you know, kind of follow along visually, but we'll wait till we get to that point. And just to kind of take a look at the lab guide to say where we are. Close this. So in the lab guide, we are, of course, we've clicked on the install collector. We've chosen the operating system that we're going to install it on. We double clicked on it. It's going to prompt us for administrator, a root password, username and password for that local machine. Once we put that in, it will then take us through a wizard. Okay. You and I will go ahead and click next within that wizard. And again, I'm leading and guiding you through the actual steps that are in the guide. Okay. So you can see right now I was prompted to go ahead and choose, log in with the credentials so it can go ahead and do the installation. So I'm right here. Some of you may be ahead, some of you may be still behind. Again, we're going to try to catch up with each other once we get to that point. So I'll eventually see this pop-up screen here. Again, as I mentioned, it'll be taking us through a wizard. It's going to ask us to accept the license agreement. Okay, so let's see here what we have. So again, here I see that, and let's see, Stelly, you say you have Joseph. No, it's gonna probably time out, Joseph. So I have that on my machine right now. I'm using an M1. So good question. Okay. All right. Again, you get in the wizard. You click next. Again, as I mentioned, it's going to ask you to accept the agreement. You click next. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've gotten ahead of me and you're at the token or access key, please stop there. Again, if you get to that point, please stop so I can help you out. So going back to the actual guide here, I am at this point where I said yes to the access agreement. It's going to bring me to a point where it has my collector name. Now, I want to point out that your collector name you might want to keep track of, because when we go searching for the collector name, you might forget. It's going to use your host name, your machine name. That's what it's going to use as a default collector. You'll see it, but I want you to remember it. Okay. All right. So let's see. So mine is preparing to install. Again, as I mentioned, some of you may be ahead of me. We'll go ahead and let that go through its scenario. And what other steps here? Let me just make sure we go through all of them. You'll get to a point where you'll see advanced settings, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at your actual lab guide, when you get to that advanced settings, that's where I want you to take note of your collector name. Be aware that you can click on the advanced settings and change it, but we're not going to do that. Even though the direction says change it, just remember whatever your machine name is. Okay, that's all I want, that collector name. Just remember what that is. You don't have to really go through the advanced and change all of that. You'll click next, and then it'll give you like a confirmation summary page where it'll give you your collector name. then you'll get to this page here where it's asking you and prompting you for a key. And there's two types of keys. And I want you to kind of pull over to the side and wait for me there if you could. So I take it mine had an old installation maybe from this morning or so. So it's uninstalling and then going to install again. So we'll go ahead and do that. How's your installation going? Okay, Ed. If a lot of you get to the access ID part, I'll go ahead and talk to you. Okay, Joseph, you're there as well. Okay, Benjamin, you're there. Okay, okay. I'll go ahead and just a couple of minutes try this, and then I'll demonstrate where you're going to get that access key from. So just bear with me. If you're at that token page access key, just stay there for a couple more minutes. All right, others out there, hopefully you are inching along as well. And just to kind of get back here. Again, we're just waiting on mine to uninstall the previous version and it will install the new one. So Joseph, this is sort of the issue that I run into. If I were to get out of Zoom to release some of the memory, it'll probably work faster. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're in our training environment. I have a machine that has a different processor. So again, it doesn't work as efficiently as yours. Maybe in the real world, trust me, you don't have this issue. Yeah, Joseph. Yeah, exactly. If most of you, hopefully most of you have gotten to that token page, let me know if you have not gotten to the token page, because I can let this run and keep us moving. If you are not at the token page, let me know. Yeah, the arm is not working for Rosetta. Yeah. All right, so those of you that have all reached the token page, and I'll go ahead and speak to that. You have two types of tokens there. You have two types of security access. You have a token and you have an access key, okay? A token can only be used once. So once you use it, it's done. You can't use it anymore, okay? Whereas an access key can be reusable. So that's what you're going to go ahead and do and click on the actual radio button for creating an access key, okay? When you click on that radio button to create an access key, you click next in the wizard, okay? Then you're going to go ahead and type in the name of the key and start out with uppercase AK for access key underscore your initials. And I'm trying to get there as quick as I can. I know I'm talking you through the labs, but again, I'm trying to get there as quick as I can. Let me go back to. So again, what you should have done is chosen the radio button for access key. It prompts you probably to give it a name. Maybe if it didn't, don't worry about it. If you're at the screen where it says access ID and key, if you're at that screen, okay, let me get back here. See if it's done. Oh, it's not yet, okay. If you're at that screen, ladies and gentlemen, what you're gonna do is you're going to come back to the CIP. And let me know if I'm confusing anyone or if you're lost, let me know, okay? You're going to come back to the CIP, make sure your navigation panel is visible. You're going to click on your user ID name, training, whatever it is. Click on that. Underneath it, you should see the link Preferences. Go ahead and click on that Preferences link. And you should see a big blue box over to the right that reads Add Access Key. Okay. And this is where you're going to name it. I'm sorry, this is where you're going to name it. Okay. You're going to click on access key and you're going to call it AK _ your initials. Okay. Let me see if mine is finished yet. Oh, okay. Let's click next. All right, so again, let me get back over here. You're going to click Create Key in the bottom right corner. Now, let me digress here and speak to this, ladies and gentlemen. If your company has a library of access keys, some companies keep a track of all of their access keys, okay? When you're on this screen right here, you won't be able to capture this access key anymore after you choose done, okay? You won't be able to capture it. So if your company has a rule that whenever you create an access key, store it in this library source or what have you, you want to go ahead and capture it right now, okay? Again, that's just a reminder if your company has that. If not, no worries, okay? So you, of course, are going to go click copy the access ID. Then you're going to go back to the installation steps and you're going to paste the access ID, okay? Then you're going to go back to the access key, copy it, and you're going to paste the access key, okay? You can, of course, click done if you want to, and then you'll go ahead and click next in the wizard, and it will attempt to connect to Sumo Logic. So again, hopefully I led you to where all of us should be eventually. And let me see where I am. Okay, I finished. That was good to know. See what happens. And again, hopefully you all are still in that process and it has connected for you. Go ahead and let me know in the chat if you've connected already. Thank you, Stelly. Thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Raymond. Thank you, Benjamin. Let's see. I haven't done anything yet. All right, so let's go back to the lab guide. I'm sorry, going back and forth here. Let's go here, see where we are. All right, so hopefully a lot of you should have been able to connect. If you have anything wrong, again, I would suggest, again, trying going through the install collector steps again. Again, we're going to go ahead and look for our collector. So you should have gotten to a point where you said finish. Again, one of the things that I wanted you to do was remember your actual collector name. It should have been the machine name. Okay, so what we want to do is go back to our CIP, and we want to go ahead and search for our collector by using our names. I know mine won't appear. And I have one here. I will use that one, so that's awesome. So you could use wildcards if you're searching as well. So again, anyone not find that connector? Good question, Benjamin. To refresh the collector page, there's a little icon over here to the right. It looks like a little circle there. It's to the left of the word page. If you click on that, that should refresh it for you. Oh, you were letting me know. Sorry, Benjamin, I read that incorrectly. Kristen, how about you? Did we find it? All right, awesome. All right, so hopefully everyone has found their collector page, their collector item. It's important. Okay, so if I look at mine, I see the name of it. If I click the arrow, there's nothing underneath it. All we define is the vehicle. Okay, we can see it's healthy. We want to keep that stoplight or traffic light in our minds. We can see it's healthy, it's installed. You know that there's other types of collectors. There's hosted as well, but we're using an installed. Okay. All right, so hopefully everyone found it. Let's go back to our lab guide. All right, good work. You've completed the actual lab one, pardon me. We downloaded a static Apache access log file to our machine, and we installed a collector on our local machines. Okay, let's go ahead and click on lab 2, adding a source. In order for us to utilize that text file, we need to move it to our temporary directories on our machines. So for those of you that are on your Macs, you're going to move it to the TMP directory. And for those of you that are on Windows, you're going to move it to the TEMP. Okay. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate that as well. Again, we need to move it to that so we'll have permissions to utilize it. Okay. All right. So again, I'll open up my Finder. I'll go to my downloads. Here's that file. I'm going to go ahead and copy it, right click on it and copy it. I'll go up to my menu, my main menu, and go to the word go. Go down to the phrase go to folder, and I'll type in \temp and go to my temp directory. Then I'll right click and paste the file in my temporary directory. Odell, what are we doing? Well, we're moving a file that we're going to use as a source into our temporary directories on our machines so we can have access and move it once we utilize it. Okay. All right. Let me close out of this and go back to my lab guide. So yeah, that was moving that Apache file to the temp directory. We've done that. Okay. Gone through those steps. Again, we get to the depiction where we're going to create the Apache log source. So we're going to utilize that text file as one of our sources for that collector. Okay. So we're going to go back to our CIP and we're going to click find our source and choose add source. So going back to our CIP, here is my actual collector. I'll go all the way over to the right where I see the word add, the link add. Click on that, and we'll choose add source. Now we have file sources and platform sources. In this first scenario, we're going to use a file source, and that file source is local. We put it in our temporary directory. So let's go ahead and click on the local file. We're going to go ahead and give it a name. Let's call it, let's follow our guide here. They want to call it Apache log. So let's call it Apache logs with our initials. Okay. Apache logs with our initials. And I'll just add the date. You don't need to do this extra stuff that I've done. I'll put yesterday. Yeah, that's good. All right. So anyhow, we're using a name. We're calling Apache logs with our initials. We're telling it where that text file that we just moved, we're telling it where it is. So it's in our temp directory, depending on the environment, either the TEMP or the TMP, and it's called Apache Access Log Tutorials.txt. That's the file path that it's using for this source. Okay. We finally also want to give it a source category. So we're going to call it prod Apache access. So prod / Apache / access. So we'll know when we want to grab this set of logs and metrics, we'll know the actual name to equate the metadata tag to. We'll equate it to that prod Apache access. So that's all we're setting on this screen here. So hopefully you've set that. Be aware, ladies and gentlemen, you could even go further where you can designate fields and values to help kind of further help your analysts when it comes to building those searches. Anyhow, we can go down to the bottom of this screen here and just click save. All right, so what you should notice is, of course, your collector, it's green, it's healthy, and it says it has one source. So if we were to click and expand the name of the collector, there we should see the source. We see that it's healthy. We can see the actual source category as well. We'll notice that's a little blue icon to the right of the source category, and it reads open in log search. We want to go ahead and click on that so we can test that this is retrieving data. However, we need to change the time period to at least the last 24 hours. And we'll eventually see data. Again, it may not be there right away, but we can come back to this and we'll see data. We can change it to 7 days as well. I think the lab guide says 24 hours, the lab guy said. But again, you will eventually see data coming as it starts doing ingestions, okay? All right, let's go back to the lab guide. So we tested the source, did all of that. Nice job. You've now set up a source on your local machine so that data in the Apache access file that we downloaded is now available in Sumo Logic, okay? Next, in lab number 3, let's go ahead and click on that. We're gonna collect and visualize host metrics. So let's go ahead and click on lab number 3. All right. Okay. So, you know what? This is a great time for us to take a break too. I've been talking for a good hour. So let's go ahead and take our 5-minute break here. I'll go ahead and put up the timer, and we can come back in 5 and do the next lab. Okay, so let's just kind of pause here, take a breath, get a stretch, and come back and do the labs. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you had the opportunity to get away from the monitor for a moment or two and get something to drink or what have you. All right, we had just completed lab number 2, and we had clicked on lab number 3, okay? And again, on lab number 3, it gives us that depiction of what we're about to do. So far, we've successfully created a collector. We've added one source as a text file. We're now going to add a host metrics, okay? So I'm on under the phrase where it reads, add a host metric. Okay, and again, we're going to go back to that collector of ours. We're going to add a source, and this time we're going to choose one of our platform sources, a host metric. Okay, so let's go back to the CIP. We can go ahead and go to our collections if you see that or not. Okay, so go on collections. Okay, so here's my collector. I see it has that one source created. We're going to go back to the name of our collector and go over to the right and click on add again. We'll go ahead and click on add source again. And again, we saw the file sources and the platform sources. This time we're going to go ahead and use a platform source, and we're going to use the host metrics. Okay. We'll give it a name, and let's go ahead and call it host metrics with our initials. Okay. Host metric with our initials. And let's go ahead and give it a source category. So we can use our source category naming. We're going to call it prod host metrics. Okay. Now, I want to point out to you, ladies and gentlemen, what we're capturing right now down at the bottom here is our CPU metrics. We're capturing our memory. But I want to get a lot of data, so I want to capture a lot of things. I'm going to go ahead and, you don't have to do this, not mandatory. I'm going to go ahead and capture all of my TCP data, logs, and metrics, capture my network, and my disk. Okay, so I'm going to capture all of those metrics. It's not mandatory to do it. I'm just pointing it out that you can do it. Okay. All right, so again, all we did was add our name and add our source category. Let's go ahead and click save. We now should see another named item. Okay, it's called prod host metrics. There it is. And then we click on, yeah, I did check them all, Kristen. It's not mandatory that you do, but I did check all of them just to get a lot of data. Again, once you come to this screen here, you're gonna see that icon, that little blue icon that we talked about before. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and click on that blue icon, because what it's gonna do is open up in metrics. So let's go ahead and click on that. And you should see some measurement of metrics down the bottom. Again, it's letting you know that it is working. Okay. All right, let's go back to our lab guide. So again, we did all of that. We also looked and opened up a log search, or excuse me, a metric search, and we saw our items. Okay. Give it a second, Kristen. It'll probably come on there. Make sure you did give it the correct metadata tag name, but then give it a second. It should give you data eventually. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's now, again, if you're having problems, you can always go to whether in the lab guide where it says visualize host metrics, and that's where we actually were doing things. Okay. All right, let's keep going here. So next, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. In this lab, you've created a metric source to send your host metrics information into Sumo Logic's environment. So we could start investigating our host metrics. We're going to do that by installing a host metrics app. So those are one of those out-of-the-box apps that we have that has dashboards, okay? So let's go back to our CIP, make sure our navigation panel is visible. Let's go ahead and click on our app catalog. And again, just to remind you, you have the ability to filter down on a particular category. We're going to go ahead and type in the search the word host, and it's case insensitive. So again, I type in host, I see it filters down, and we want to go ahead and choose the host metric. Again, with this here app, it gives you an overview. This host metric allows us to monitor performance and resource utilization of our host and processes that our mission critical applications are dependent upon. Okay. It also gives us some preview of some of the dashboards that we can scroll through that's going to be provided with this. All right, so let's go ahead and go through the wizard here. We'll go ahead and click on Add Integration. We're in a 3-step wizard mode. So in the top right corner, we'll go ahead and click Next. We want to specify a source category, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I had a few issues with this earlier in my earlier class, so I want to kind of make this easier for all of us. If you're having troubles, again, I'm just going to go ahead and I want that prod host metrics is what we're going to call it. So I'm going to go ahead and type it first and then copy and paste, because before we had trouble typing it. So I'll show you in 1 minute what I mean. So again, we want prod host metrics as the metadata tag for our source category. So let me just make sure I grab that right. So it's prod / host metrics. Yep. All right, so I'm going back to my CIP. I see it says source category. I noticed last time when I tried to type here, it wouldn't let me type. So what I'm suggesting to you, if you're having the same problem, go ahead and copy from the chat and then paste, or type it somewhere and then paste. I don't know what the issue is. I'll bring it up, okay? Yeah, Stelly, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. All right, so hopefully everyone got to that point. You were able to do that. Copying and pasting. Now we're in a wizard mode, so we're going to click next. It's going to eventually give you a green success pop-up. You'll go to your personal tab folder. You'll click on the host metrics folder, and you'll see that this folder comes with some predefined dashboards. So if we go ahead and click on that host metrics overview, again, we get our average CPU idle time. We'll get our total use, less buffer and cache memory, our disk available bytes, our in byte ratios and out byte ratios. Again, that's on our overview dashboard. We also have the ability, ladies and gentlemen, to click on share this actual folder as well. So if I were to go up to the host metric folder, I can click on the 3 dots. And then I can go to the word share, okay? And again, you and I have seen this, some of you that have been to the course with me, we can share it with the entire organization, okay? They can be notified if we wanted them to be. And then we choose share, okay? They, of course, would come out to their library and they would search for that item, and then they would find it. Okay. All righty. Let's go back to our lab guide. So we did all of that. We open up the dashboard. All right, so you've now visualized host metric data, and you have host metrics app dashboard. You've added that. Okay. There's much more that you could do with metrics. Again, we have a link in our actual lab guide working with metrics that'll give you more information. Okay. All right, let's go back to the slides. Let's talk about optimization and optimization tools. Okay. There's actually two paths that you can go down. You can go down both paths if you want when it talks about optimization tools. There's that field-based path and the index-based path. That field-based path is talking about the field browser. So when we open up a log search, we see all of those fields, and some of them are hidden and some of them are going to be displayed. Well, that's going to improve performance for us if we parse out those fields during ingestion. Okay, and parsing out fields during ingestion is referred to as field extraction rules. And we're going to go get more into them and show you where they are and look at them and things of that sort. But again, we're just looking at a high level optimization choices. One choice is field-based, where we're using field extraction rules that allows those fields to be in our field browser, and we can utilize them. We don't have to parse them out. Another approach, okay, is index-based, where we're partitioning. As I mentioned, maybe we're creating buckets. I want my IT to only go against this set of data or this partition, okay? Or scheduled views. Scheduled views are whether you have those aggregated data values, okay? Again, those pre-aggregated data values. That means that the tool doesn't have to do aggregation because we're using views. So those are the two approaches when it comes to optimization. Now let me get into it and kind of break down a few more things for you. So here I am in the tool here, and I'm gonna just kind of, let me sign out. I'm gonna sign in as myself for a second, just to kind of show you I have a few more rights here. So I'm gonna log in as myself. But if I do a log search real quickly, again, a lot of this is demonstration now, ladies and gentlemen, so you're sort of watching. I'm just gonna do a quickly a source, oops, not gonna do that. I'm going to go ahead and do a source category, and I'm going to equate it to labs, Apache, access. Now, when I utilize this, when I run this, I'll see I have a messages tab. And as I mentioned before in other courses, this is referred to as the field browser. This entire area is referred, the messages tab is referred to as the field browser, okay? And these fields that are unchecked were parsed out during ingestion. And we'll talk about field extraction rules coming up a little further, okay? Some of the advantages you have with those fields that are not part of the display, if you click on the name and not the checkbox, you'll get a breakdown of the approximately count of those items and the percentages of those items, okay? All right, now you also see to the right of the actual item an A for character or a pound symbol for numeric, okay? And you see some numbers over to the right as well, okay? So going back to my slides here, just to kind of talk about what you see here. Again, we see those fields that are going to be displayed, they're going to be checked, okay? If you see any tildes in front of your counts, that's the, excuse me, the approximate value. You can also see any available non-aggregate queries that are available as well. So those are some of that information you're going to see in the field browser, okay? Now, let me just go ahead and talk about and show you where those field extraction rules are. I've been talking about them for a while, so I'll go back to my navigation panel. And I'll go down to my manage data. Under my manage data, there's some logs link there, okay? Now, I have 6 tabs up here in my logs link. I want to look at the field extraction rules. And this is where you as an administrator, you can go ahead and create that by clicking on add rule. You would give the rule a name. You've specified when that rule should be applied, either at ingestion time or maybe at runtime, okay? Then you would, of course, create the parse expression, and then the fields that you're parsing out will be displayed, okay? So for example, let me open up one of these field extraction rules to kind of demonstrate what we're talking about. And open up the good old demo FER. So here's the name of it. The status is it's enabled, so it's going to be working, okay? When is it going to be working? What time is it going to be applied at? It's going to be applied at ingestion time. So this field will be these fields will be extracted and stored when the data is received by Sumo Logic, okay? So what data we're talking about? Well, we're talking about anything that's in the labs Apache Access. Here's the actual parse statement, okay? When we parse, we create some field names as well, okay? So here's the fields that we're extracting out, and these fields will be, of course, available in my field browser now. So here's that SRC IP. Again, this was parsed out during ingestion time, okay? So again, those are field extraction rules there for you. All right. Some more points about field extraction rules. Their benefits of their better performance. They're standardizing fields. So again, when you parse out, as I mentioned, you're creating a field name. So that kind of limits others from parsing and creating other names and things. Again, you're providing those fields already at parse, and they see it, so they don't have to parse out and create their own naming conventions. Okay, it simplifies the searches because those actual fields are available to you. Now, some of our best practices are to build just those simple and specific rules. Make sure you test the parsing. Use the no drop or the is empty for testing. Remember that no drop, what it's going to do, it's going to bring back all the actual all the rows of the records, pardon me. It's going to bring back all the records, even if the record didn't match the parse syntax. So that's what that no drop does for you. We do have some limitations. Again, 50 rules and 200 fields. If you want to increase that, again, you can contact us about that as well. All right. Partitioning. Again, I was mentioning you could create partitions. Again, you can break it down, maybe prod, dev, QA. Again, for faster searching on our RBAC control, you have the ability to create additional partitions so your searchers don't have to scan an entire data set, but instead it only scans the necessary partition, okay? There's no overlapping, no more than 20 partitions. You wanna group the data that is searched together most often. Again, you wanna ideally make it between 1 and 30% of the total volume. Okay, and again, back in the tool, creating partitions. Again, I'm still on my logs. One of those links is partitions. Again, I can come in here and add the partition. I can choose the type of data tier. And again, an admin would know that where it's going to be continuous, frequent, or infrequent, meaning how much ingestion is going to be. You can actually go out to our Sumo, you can go out to our help.sumologic.com and find out more about these data tiers, okay? All right, schedule views while I'm here. Again, these are these pre-aggregated objects. You can again create new schedule views, give it a name, specify the query and the date and that retention period as well. If you want to forward it, maybe hosting it somewhere else, you have that capability too. All right. All right, so we just talked about schedule views. Again, the best practice about them, they're pre-aggregated, okay? You can find the needle in the haystack with these. Make sure you don't insert any comments. Again, they might interrupt the parsing of the pipes. Well, we recommend a 1 to 10,000 log message that are scanned. We make sure you view the updated by service. And remember, I referred to another metadata tag that we're going to start using. When we talk about schedule views, we're going to use the metadata tag _view. Okay, so that's another metadata tag we're going to introduce you to. Benjamin asks, are these field extraction rules automatically shared? Actually, again, those field extraction rules are going to be applied to whatever source that you create. Okay, so you're going to apply that. And anyone that has administrator access can see those, can come in there, look at those, and use those as well. All right, here are some examples of schedule views. Maybe you want to have a web access trend. You want to capture that. Or maybe you want to capture your app usage metrics or any threat analysis. Or maybe you want to look at user behavior. So those are some examples of or instances where you could apply a schedule view. Again, the two approaches to optimization, field-based, where you're creating field extraction rules that are parsing out those fields, which allows those fields to be available in the browser. Again, it's going to extract those during ingestion. Okay, or you can go with the the index base, and you can go with the index base if you want to. Partitioning allows you to put those segment that data together, that metadata together, or again, creating those schedule views where you have pre-aggregated data, okay? Now, if we take a look at the overview and the data management, and I'm gonna do this in tool. So let me get back in here. All right, so again, if you want to close any link that you've opened, you click on the link name again and it'll close for you. So I'm gonna go into my administration and click on my account here. In here, I see the account overview. When you first log in as an administrator, again, you'll see the account overview screen. It's gonna give you a highlight of the system and an indication of the performance, okay? You can also look at your current billing period, how much data you've ingested daily. Okay, this can be a helpful page for you. Okay. All right. Also here, you'll see the data management. Again, we are going to download another app. It's the data volume app. Okay. When we download that app, in order for us to download it, this has to be enabled, and it is enabled already. But again, if you ever in your real world environments and you try to download the data volume, it's going to warn you, make sure that this is enabled. Okay. Again, managing your plan, you have that capability of designating and indicating the plan type, the billing period, etc. Okay. All right, let's go back here. So we talked about the data management, that checkbox. All right, so again, there's some out-of-the-box dashboards and save searches and field extraction rules. Those are part of those apps. We've already downloaded an app, so you're aware of that, okay? When that app is installed, it has preset searches and dashboards that are customized with your source configuration, okay? And it's populated in the folder, of course. Again, we recommend as an administrator that you download both the data volume and the audit, okay? It's just kind of warning you that that checkbox needs to be checked for both of these, okay? Your ingest budget monitoring and control, again, it's actually renamed. So let me point that out to you. So if you go to manage data, you'll see monitoring, and under that monitoring, that's where you'll see, what did they do with that? Okay, let me go back here. Oh, so sorry, they put it under collections, sorry. So it's under collections, and here's my ingest budget. I click on that. Here I can go ahead and add a budget if maybe I want to add it for a particular key and value. Okay, again, I can set and designate that ingest budget for maybe on a group base, or maybe on an application base, region base, etc. Ingest mastery monitoring control, again, how they work. You can look at your collectors and monitor them on their total ingestion. You can look at the usage. Okay, some use cases for your budget monitoring and control. Teams may ingest data unevenly. Some teams may ingest more than others, sometimes by a lot. You can use an ingest budget to set some guardrails for overconsumption and cost sharing. Okay, some of the best practices that we have for your ingest budgets are to assign and recognize collectors owned by a given team, and then allocate that ingest budget by namespace. The health and monitoring on our screenshot, it actually goes to manage and alerts, but again, it's not named that, it's actually manage data and monitoring. That's where you'll get the health of the events. So here's some of those collectors that are failing out here. We could, of course, click on them, go and look at more actions, look at the event history. Again, find out a little bit more of what's going on there. That was in the manage under monitoring. Okay, again, be mindful of that because of the actual slides. All right, now let's take a look at global security. Okay, and let me go ahead and do this in tool. So I'm going down to my administration. Let me collapse my managed data, go to my administration, and I'm going to the account. Sorry, going to the user and rows. Here we can create users. You can just click on the add user. One of the things that we suggest, ladies and gentlemen, when you create users is you put their full first name and last name. Okay, put their full first name and last name, because we want their certification to actually read, congratulations, Odell Gordon. We don't want it to read O Gordon or Gordon, excuse me, Odell G or anything like that. So again, we recommend you put their full names. You also have the ability to create roles. You can add a new role, give it a name. You can then designate what type of data management it has, what type of capabilities it has as well. Okay, just by checking through these. All right. All right, so we should have been looking at the password policy, and I went somewhere else. So I'll go down to security. I'm under administration, going to security. Again, the password policy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're clicking within our training environment, you may not see all of this capability, okay? We lock down some of it so we can keep it, manage it. But anyhow, on our password policy tab, you can designate it, how long the password lasts, any capabilities of reusing it, any options here, as well as the length of it, as well as failed attempts. Again, all of that information is here on the password policy tab. Okay. Then when we click on the service allow list here, again, we have the ability to add IP addresses. Okay, you can use whitelist to enable logins from certain IP addresses over here, this allow list. Okay, you can also enable dashboard URLs to be shared worldwide without logging in, or you can control it so that only those with certain IP addresses can observe it. Now, in case this comes up on an exam, If you use the service allow list setting and you add an IP address, that means that IP address has access. Okay, that's what that means. All right, now, again, over here to the right, you have the enable login API allow list. If you enable that, anyone with the IP that you add or the seeder that you add, again, they'll have the ability to allowed to access the environment. Okay, you can enable a dashboard allow list. Again, if you add an IP address or a CIDR, again, that dashboard can be shared to users connected from that specific IP address or CIDR. The next tab is the access keys. Again, I'm on my administration security. Here's a list of all of those access keys. Remember, we went and created one by clicking on our name and going to our preferences. But as an administrator, you have ability to add an access key as well, similar to what we did before. And you can view all of the access keys that have been created in your environment. Okay, and that's for authentication. Okay. Then your policies, again, there are 5 different types of policies that you can control. You can control the Sumo Logic auditing, which allows you to monitor user access. So this is a good thing to enable this, as our system would track that information. There's also the support account allows you to allow Sumo to access your account if you need assistance to troubleshoot. Okay, you would have to enable that. Okay. Then there's the with shared dashboards outside the organization. Again, this allows you to share the dashboards outside the organization. This can be enabled, or it can be not allowed of sharing the dashboards outside your organization. So again, you can toggle that on and off as well. Then you have the data access level for shared dashboards. If this is enabled, it ensures that the viewer permissions are used and not the permissions of the sharer of the dashboard. And then down at the bottom, you have the ability to designate the concurrent session limits. This allows you to specify the number of concurrent Sumo Logic sessions that a user can have. Okay. The next tab, of course, is the SAML. SAML stands for Security Assertion Markup Language. Okay. So if you're using single sign-on, then this is where you'll set it up. Okay. You'll have the ability to configure your SAML. If your organization uses a SAML, we strongly encourage you to integrate it into Sumo Logic. Okay. The best practice is to include the user's full name first and last. Again, just to remind you of that. And then we can see all of the tokens that were installed. We can also add a token here from an administrator's perspective. All right, so went to password, went to our whitelist, our tokens, and our policies, as well as our SAML. All right, again, the user role in management I went through already. Again, you want to add the full first name and last name. And you want to make sure, be aware that, ladies and gentlemen, there's 2 default roles. We've used one in our prior courses, that was the analyst. And we're using one now today, that's the admin. Okay, the analyst, again, has full data access, but it doesn't have user or collector management capabilities, whereas the administrator does have collector capabilities. You can view and manage it. It also has the ability to manage users and roles. I talked about the capabilities. You can create a new role, again, and designate the capabilities. Content sharing. All right, now be aware that when you are, let me get to the right place. When you're on your library tab, not in the navigation panel, the tabs there. When you're on your library tab, you're seeing all of the things that you own because it says me. As an administrator, you can click the drop-down arrow and you can see everything that all users own. Now, if a user moves to another part of the organization or it leaves the company, then you as an administrator, you have the ability to reassign it to someone else. So it's just going to stay there until it's reassigned. Okay. In case that appears on an exam somewhere, again, you can reassign it to someone. All right. So again, you can grant, view, edit, or manage an item. Again, you can also call attention to content. You could actually let users know, hey, I need you to look at this. You can put it here and I need you to look at this particular dashboard or what have you. We want to just remind you, once you change to content administrator and you've completed your task, go ahead and change it back. Just remember to change that back. All right, so let's go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, together and install an app. So we're going to do labs 4 and 6. So let's go back to our lab guide again and click on lab 4, install an app. Now, there are 2 applications that will provide information about what's going on in the Sumo Logic environment. It's the audit app and the data volume app, okay? Before you begin, again, you got to make sure that that checkbox is checked for auditing, and you also have to make sure for the data volume that checkbox is checked, okay? We know they're both checked, so we're going to continue on. We're now at the point where we're going to install the audit app, okay? So let's go back to our actual CIP. And let's go down to our navigation panel, go down to our main menu and click on the app catalog. And then we want to go ahead and type in their search audit, case insensitive. So we'll type in the search area the word audit, okay? And it filters down, and we're looking for the actual app that only has the word audit in it. So again, we can click on that. It lets us know in the overview, this is going to analyze our audit events in our Sumo Logic account. We can go ahead and click on the add integration. We're in a wizard mode, so we're going to go ahead and click next in that wizard. I'm going to give mine a different name so it'll just stand out a little bit. You don't need to do this. Okay, we'll click next in the wizard mode. We'll eventually get something that says success or succeeded. And then we can exit out of the app catalog wizard. We can also exit out of the app catalog tab, pardon me, and we can click on our personal folder in our navigation panel. Okay, and in your personal folder, you should see the audit app. Again, if you expand it, it has predefined dashboards and searches. So you'll see the searches in the orange type color items, okay? And if we go ahead and click on the library content overview dashboard for our audit, we can see several dashboard panels, okay? We can see where users are logging in from around the world. We can see any action that they're doing, any action by time. We can see the top 10 active users. Again, a lot of information here about our instance of the tool. So this audit app is here for us. Okay. All right. And you can share this app, of course, ladies and gentlemen, by going to the folder, clicking on the 3 dots and choosing share. And again, you can share with your entire organization or specific groups or roles. right, let's go back to our lab guide. So we installed that audit app. We looked at the actual dashboard, and we know how to share the audit app as well. Okay. All right, now let's go down to where we're going to install the data volume app. Again, it reminds us, make sure that that checkbox is enabled, which we know it is. Okay. We're going to go back to our app catalog, and we're going to search for the word data. So go back. Let's go to our app catalog. In the search area, we'll type the word data, case insensitive. And we, of course, are going to choose the data volume. We're in a wizard mode once we click the add integration, but just kind of give you what it's going to do. This data volume is going to provide a summary of detailed views of your account's data usage volume by data type, by tier and category and collector and source name as well. So it gives you a preview of those dashboards down that you can scroll through as well if you needed that. But again, we're going to go ahead and add the integration. So we'll create that wizard mode. There's a two-step process here. I'll quickly just put my initials. Okay, and then we click next. And we can exit out of the wizard. We can also exit out of the tab, the app catalog tab, go back to our personal folder. You should now see a data volume folder. And in it, you'll see that it has only dashboards, okay? And we can go ahead and click on the data volume overview. And here we can see our source categories, ingest, okay? We can see the usage by source category. We can see our top 5 source categories, the metrics. Okay, so again, these dashboard panels has a lot of informational, good information here as well. We could also share this folder item. Again, if you want to just share the dashboard itself, there's a share dashboard icon available as well. But again, if we want to share the entire app, we can click on the 3 dots, click share, and again, designate who we wanted to share it with. All right, very good. So we installed the app. We were able to download it. We were able to open up the actual dashboards, the overview. So congratulations, you installed the data volume app as well as the audit app. We shared it. Okay, again, we know we can share the entire with our entire organization as well. All right. Let's go ahead and click on try simple analytics with lab 5. And again, as I mentioned during the introduction of this course and the slides, we don't mention doing lab 5 because again, lab 5 is essentially going to allow you the opportunity to go and do lab 2 through 6 of the fundamentals. And most of you have already done that. So again, that was if someone is taking the self-service and they wanted to get the ability to go ahead and build some searches. Okay, you and I can go ahead and click on lab 6. We want to go ahead and create an alert for data ingestion that reaches a 50% threshold, okay? So we want to get notified when our data usage has reached a certain threshold, okay? We're going to copy the entire query under number 3. So copy the entire query under number 3. We're going to go ahead and run that query for the last 4 hours. Okay, we can schedule that if we wanted to, but we're not going to schedule that. Okay. This query below will only return results if it meets the threshold of a certain value. We can comment out where the clause to comment out the where clause to test the actual query for any collectors that we want. So let's go ahead and create a new log search. A new log. So you can close the data volume tab if you want to. We can always get back to that. Let's create a new log search. Let's go ahead and paste in our query, and let's put our time to about, let's go ahead and put it to 24 hours. That should be fine. All right, let me walk you through what's going on. So here we're using that index metadata tag. Again, we talked about new metadata tags. Here it's bringing back the Sumo Logic volume index. We're telling it, hey, we want to use the source category collector underscore volume. We're parsing out with a certain type of syntax. We're bringing back multiple occurrences because it has multiple occurrences in that parse. So we're using the multi. We then want to get our G bytes, so we're going to multiply. We're then going to sum up our G bytes to get our G bytes by collector. We're then going to total them to get today's volume. We're then going to set a planned value. We're then going to divide our G bytes by our today's volume, then divide today's volume by our planned size. And then we want to go ahead in our where and get our planned size to be greater than a specific value. We'll sort it. And lastly, this is something we kind of talked about, ladies and gentlemen, in our search mastery course yesterday. We're using the fields operator because we want to specify how we want our columns to appear at the end of when this report runs. So we're using the fields command, and we're designating we want it to appear collector, G bytes, and so forth. So let's go ahead and run this. And here we see that, of course, our fields are appearing in the format that we applied. And again, we can see all of those collectors and their percentage of total volumes. All right, let's go back to our slides. And so again, any questions? Covered quite a bit there. Let's see here. Let's see a few questions there. Joseph says, if you enable the allow list, everyone not on the allow list is blacklisted. Yeah, well, that's correct. That's essentially what that's saying, Joseph. But no whitelist means an IP can access it. So if you add the IP address, it gives them access that those specific people. So if you wanted others to access it, let's say I had a client that I wanted to access it, and I can give me your company IP address, so anybody that comes from that IP address will have access to it. Okay. Yeah, if you go out, Stelly, and Stelly's asking about Salesforce. So if you look at collect, go out, do the Sumo, do the help here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's do help and hit enter. And we can go out here and look up Salesforce, maybe. Maybe it'll give us that. How to use it there, collecting logs from Salesforce app. So some of these links out here will be helpful for you, Stelly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to go ahead and take the exam. Again, I want to walk you through how to take the exam, of course. So you are in our training environment. You're going to first go to your navigation panel and click on your training ID and sign out. So we want you to sign out of our training environment. So go ahead and do that first. And then we want you to go ahead and log in to your company's Sumo Logic environment. Go ahead and log into that. And when you log into your Sumo Logic environment, you're going to go ahead and make sure you're on the home tab, and you'll click on the certification link. You'll click on the get certified. This is the same place that I directed you to when you wanted to hear the videos, but this time we're coming out and going to the Get Certified in your company's Sumo Logic environment. We'll click on that Get Certified. We have it in different languages that can be filtered. You and I have just completed taking demonstrating the administration lecture, so we can go ahead and click on that as the exam. You'll quickly register with a click. It's 30 questions. I will be here for 60 minutes to assist you if you need any help. Again, it's going to be open book, open notes, open documentation. Again, remember help.sumologic.com. You'll then go ahead and start the assessment. You need 75 to pass. Here's one of those questions that you guys just asked me about. If you enable the login API whitelist option is selected, access to Sumo Logic is granted to only IPRs that are added to the whitelist. Okay, I may get this wrong. Okay, we have over 1,000 questions. You'll go through all the questions. You'll then submit all answers. I actually got it right. Again, this is where you'll be able to see the answers. Okay, you can take the test as many times as you like. We suggest you take the test now, the exam now, while it's fresh in your mind. But again, if you have other commitments, we understand that as well. Okay. All right. You're welcome, Stelly. You're welcome, Benjamin. Again, on behalf of us, the trainers here at Sumo Logic, and myself, I would like to thank you for allowing me to present to you. Hopefully, you learned a lot of information in these 3 days that you've been with me, some of you. We look forward to seeing you in upcoming trainings. Good luck on the actual exam. I'm going to post in here the actual Uber Eats voucher link. If you're not taking the exam, again, you can, of course, have the rest of the day or evening to yourselves, and you can actually exit out of the Zoom. If you are going to take the exam, after you complete it, you, of course, can also exit out of the Zoom as well. Thank you all. Enjoy. Good luck.